One of the most damaging beliefs a woman can carry is the idea that being unloved means she is unworthy. This misunderstanding has broken confidence, weakened dreams, and trapped countless women in cycles of self-doubt. When love is absent, many people immediately begin searching for flaws within themselves. They assume that if someone failed to love them, appreciate them, or remain loyal to them, there must be something wrong with them. Yet this conclusion is often far from the truth. A person's inability to love you properly is not proof that you lack value. It is only proof that they lack the capacity, maturity, wisdom, or willingness to recognize and appreciate what was standing before them. The sun does not stop shining because a blind person cannot see it. A masterpiece does not lose its beauty because someone fails to understand art. Likewise, a woman does not lose her worth because someone failed to love her correctly. Many women spend years carrying emotional wounds from rejection. They replay conversations in their minds. They analyze every mistake they may have made. They question their appearance, their personality, their intelligence, and even their purpose. The pain of not being loved often creates an internal courtroom where they become both the accused and the judge. They constantly put themselves on trial, searching for reasons why they were not chosen, appreciated, or valued. The danger of this mindset is that it allows other people's decisions to become the measuring stick for your self-worth. When you do that, your confidence becomes dependent upon circumstances you cannot control. If someone praises you, you feel valuable. If someone rejects you, you feel worthless. If someone stays, you feel secure. If someone leaves, you feel broken. This creates a fragile identity that rises and falls according to the opinions of others. True confidence cannot be built on such an unstable foundation. Your value must come from a deeper source. Worth is not something another person gives you. Worth is something you possess by your very existence. Long before anyone entered your life, you already had value. Before anyone complimented you, you were valuable. Before anyone fell in love with you, you were valuable. Before anyone noticed your talents, your beauty, or your strengths, your value already existed. Many people fail to understand that love and worth are not the same thing. Love is an action. Worth is a condition. Love can be withheld. Worth cannot. Love can be misunderstood. Worth remains unchanged. Love can be lost. Worth remains intact. This distinction is life-changing because it frees a woman from the exhausting burden of trying to earn her value. Some women spend decades trying to become lovable enough. They become people pleasers. They sacrifice their own needs. They tolerate disrespect. They remain silent when they should speak. They accept less than they deserve because they fear losing whatever little affection they have received. The tragedy is that the more they try to earn love by abandoning themselves, the further they move away from recognizing their own worth. They begin believing that their purpose is to satisfy everyone else while neglecting their own emotional health. A woman must understand that healthy love does not require her to become someone else. Genuine love appreciates authenticity. It does not demand self-erasure. When you are constantly changing yourself to keep someone's attention, you are no longer building a relationship. You are performing for acceptance. Eventually, that performance becomes exhausting because no one can live forever pretending to be someone they are not. The unloved woman often develops a habit of comparing herself to others. She looks at women who seem admired, pursued, or celebrated and assumes they possess something she lacks. Yet comparison is a dangerous teacher because it focuses attention on appearances while ignoring reality. Every person carries struggles that others cannot see. Every life contains hidden battles. The woman you envy may be fighting insecurities you know nothing about. Your journey is unique. Your purpose is unique. Your value is unique. Comparing your worth to someone else's circumstances is like comparing different flowers and asking which one deserves to bloom. A rose does not compete with a sunflower. A sunflower does not compete with an orchid. Each fulfills its purpose by becoming fully what it was created to be. The moment a woman realizes that her worth is independent of external validation, something powerful begins to happen. She stops begging for attention. She stops chasing approval. She stops interpreting every rejection as evidence of personal failure. Instead, she begins to understand that not every closed door is a statement about her value. Sometimes it is simply a matter of incompatibility. Sometimes it is a matter of timing. Sometimes it is a reflection of another person's limitations. This understanding creates emotional freedom. It allows a woman to walk away from situations that diminish her. It gives her the courage to establish standards. It teaches her that being alone is often healthier than being in relationships that constantly make her question her worth. The truth is that an unloved woman is not necessarily an unworthy woman. In fact, some of the most remarkable women have experienced rejection, abandonment, and neglect. Their experiences did not define their value. Their response to those experiences revealed their strength. The greatest transformation begins when a woman stops asking, "Why wasn't I loved?" and starts asking, "Why have I allowed someone else's actions to determine how I see myself?" The answer to that question can open the door to healing, growth, and renewed confidence. Your worth is not on trial. It never was. The opinions of people may change. Relationships may come and go. Acceptance may rise and fall, but your value remains constant. The sooner you understand that being unloved and being unworthy are two completely different realities, the sooner you will stop searching for proof of your value in other people and start discovering the treasure that has always existed within you. Many women spend years trying to understand why they feel empty, insecure, or disconnected from themselves without realizing that emotional neglect may be at the root of their struggle. Emotional neglect is not always loud or obvious. It does not always come in the form of abuse, criticism, or rejection. Sometimes it comes through silence. Sometimes it appears as indifference. Sometimes it is the absence of encouragement, affection, attention, or emotional support. The wounds created by emotional neglect are often invisible, yet they can shape a woman's identity more deeply than many visible hardships. A woman who grows up feeling emotionally neglected often learns a dangerous lesson very early in life. She begins to believe that her feelings do not matter. When her emotions are ignored, dismissed, or minimized repeatedly, she may start suppressing them. Instead of expressing her pain, she hides it. Instead of speaking her truth, she remains silent. Instead of believing she deserves care, she convinces herself that asking for support is a burden to others. Over time, this pattern becomes part of her identity. She stops seeing herself as someone worthy of attention and starts viewing herself as someone who must earn it. She believes she must perform, achieve, sacrifice, or please others before she deserves love. This belief becomes the foundation upon which many of her future decisions are built. The tragedy of emotional neglect is that it affects how a woman sees herself long before it affects how she sees the world. Identity is formed by repeated messages. If a woman constantly receives the message that her emotions are unimportant, she eventually accepts it as truth. If she repeatedly feels unseen, she may begin to believe she has nothing worth seeing. If she feels unheard, she may conclude that her voice has no value. This is how emotional neglect quietly shapes self-perception. It teaches a woman to question her worth even when there is nothing wrong with her. She may become highly successful professionally, yet feel inadequate personally. She may receive compliments, but struggle to believe them. She may accomplish great things, yet still feel as though she is never enough. Many emotionally neglected women become experts at taking care of everyone except themselves. They learn to focus on other people's needs because they were never taught to honor their own. They become caregivers, supporters, encouragers, and problem solvers. They pour endlessly into others while secretly feeling empty inside. The reason for this is often simple. Deep within, they hope that by meeting everyone else's needs, someone will finally meet theirs. They hope that if they give enough love, someone will return it. They hope that if they become indispensable, they will never be abandoned. But this strategy rarely produces lasting fulfillment. It often creates exhaustion instead. A woman cannot build her identity on being needed by others. If her sense of value depends entirely on what she does for people, she will constantly fear losing her worth whenever she rests, fails, or disappoints someone. Emotional neglect also affects relationships. A woman who has not healed from it may unknowingly seek validation from unhealthy sources. She may tolerate poor treatment because she has become accustomed to emotional scarcity. She may accept crumbs of affection because she has spent so much of her life emotionally hungry. She may remain in situations where she is undervalued because being partially loved feels familiar. Familiarity should never be mistaken for health. Just because something feels normal does not mean it is beneficial. One of the greatest dangers of emotional neglect is that it convinces a woman to settle for less than she deserves. She may lower her expectations, silence her needs, and ignore her intuition simply to avoid feeling rejected again. Yet every time she abandons herself to gain acceptance, she reinforces the very wound she is trying to heal. Healing begins when she recognizes that emotional neglect was an experience, not an identity. What happened to her is not who she is. The lack of emotional support she received does not determine her value. The affection she missed does not define her future. A healthy identity is not built upon what was withheld. It is built upon truth. The truth is that every human being possesses inherent value. Worth is not created by attention. It is not produced by validation. It is not granted by relationships. It exists independently of all those things. As a woman begins to understand this, her self-perception starts to change. She stops measuring herself by how others treat her. She stops interpreting every rejection as proof of inadequacy. She stops viewing her needs as weaknesses. Instead, she learns to honor her emotions, respect her boundaries, and care for herself with the same compassion she has always offered to others. The woman who heals from emotional neglect experiences a profound transformation. She no longer seeks permission to exist fully. She no longer apologizes for having feelings. She no longer believes she must earn the right to be valued. She understands that her worth was never missing. It was simply hidden beneath years of misunderstanding. Once she embraces this truth, she becomes stronger, wiser, and more secure. She begins to build relationships from a place of wholeness rather than desperation. She chooses environments that nurture her growth rather than diminish it. Most importantly, she learns to see herself through the lens of value rather than through the lens of past neglect. That is when her identity is no longer shaped by what she lacked. It is shaped by what she has finally discovered within herself, and that discovery has the power to change the course of her entire life. One of the most dangerous habits a person can develop is the habit of seeking validation from others to determine their value. This habit is especially common among women who have experienced emotional neglect, rejection, abandonment, or a lack of genuine affection. When love is missing during important seasons of life, a person can begin to believe that approval from others is the answer to the emptiness they feel within. They start looking outward for something that can only be established inwardly. Validation is the desire to be seen, accepted, appreciated, and acknowledged. There is nothing wrong with appreciating encouragement from others. Every human being enjoys being respected and valued. The problem begins when validation becomes a necessity instead of a bonus. The moment your confidence depends on someone else's approval, you have unknowingly handed them authority over your emotional well-being. Many women spend years trying to gain acceptance from people who have already decided not to appreciate them. They work harder, give more, sacrifice more, and lower their own standards, hoping to earn the recognition they desire. They believe that if they become attractive enough, successful enough, patient enough, or useful enough, someone will finally see their worth. Yet the tragedy is that no amount of effort can force another person to value what they refuse to understand. When your identity is built on validation, your emotions become unstable. A compliment makes you feel important, but criticism makes you feel worthless. Praise gives you confidence, but rejection steals your peace. Acceptance makes you happy, but disapproval makes you question everything about yourself. This creates a life that is controlled by external opinions rather than internal conviction. The reason this happens is because validation-based living places your self-worth in the hands of people who may not even know their own worth. Imagine giving strangers the power to decide whether you are valuable. Imagine allowing someone else's temporary opinion to determine your permanent identity. Yet this is exactly what many people do every day. A woman who constantly seeks validation often becomes afraid of disappointing others. She may say yes when she wants to say no. She may tolerate disrespect because she fears losing approval. She may remain silent when she should speak because she worries about how people will react. Over time, she slowly loses touch with her authentic self because she becomes more focused on being accepted than being genuine. This dependency on validation creates emotional exhaustion. It is tiring to constantly perform for acceptance. It is exhausting to spend your life trying to meet everyone's expectations. No matter how hard you try, there will always be someone who misunderstands you, criticizes you, or fails to appreciate you. If your happiness depends on universal approval, happiness will always remain out of reach. One of the greatest lessons in personal growth is understanding that not everyone is assigned to celebrate you. Some people will overlook your gifts. Some will underestimate your abilities. Some will fail to recognize your value. Their inability to see your worth does not diminish your worth. It simply reveals the limits of their perception. Consider a priceless work of art displayed before someone who knows nothing about art. The masterpiece does not lose value because the observer fails to appreciate it. The observer's lack of understanding does not change the quality of the artwork. In the same way, your value remains intact even when people fail to recognize it. The strongest women are not those who receive the most validation. The strongest women are those who have learned to validate themselves through truth, purpose, and self-awareness. They understand who they are. They know their principles. They recognize their strengths and weaknesses. Because their identity is rooted in something deeper than public opinion, they remain steady during both praise and criticism. This does not mean they become arrogant or indifferent. It means they are no longer controlled by the emotional highs and lows that come from seeking approval. They appreciate encouragement, but they do not depend on it. They welcome support, but they do not require it to function. Their confidence comes from understanding their value rather than waiting for someone else to announce it. An unloved woman begins to heal the moment she stops asking, "What do they think about me?" and starts asking, "What do I know to be true about myself?" That shift changes everything. Instead of chasing acceptance, she starts building character. Instead of seeking applause, she develops purpose. Instead of begging for recognition, she invests in growth. Freedom begins when you realize that your worth is not a vote taken by other people. It is not determined by how many people approve of you, admire you, choose you, or praise you. Your worth exists independently of their opinions. Once you understand this truth, validation loses its power to control you. The woman who no longer depends on external validation becomes emotionally stronger, mentally clearer, and spiritually healthier. She walks with confidence because she knows who she is. She stops shrinking herself to fit into spaces that do not appreciate her. She stops chasing people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She stops measuring her value by someone else's attention. And when that transformation happens, she discovers something remarkable. The approval she spent years searching for from others was never as powerful as the confidence that comes from finally believing in her own value. One of the most misunderstood realities in life is that rejection and disappointment can become powerful sources of strength. Most people naturally see painful experiences as obstacles, something to avoid, something that damages them. Yet history, experience, and human development consistently reveal a different truth. Some of the strongest individuals are not those who have avoided hardship, but those who have learned how to grow through it. For many women who have felt unloved, ignored, unappreciated, or emotionally neglected, there is often a hidden strength developing beneath the surface that they do not immediately recognize. When a woman repeatedly experiences disappointment, she begins to discover parts of herself that comfort never required her to find. Challenges demand growth. Difficult seasons force self-reflection. Painful relationships reveal weaknesses that must be strengthened, and strengths that were previously unknown. While the experience itself may be painful, the process often produces wisdom, resilience, and emotional maturity that cannot be acquired through easy circumstances. Many women spend years wondering why they had to endure rejection. They question why their loyalty was overlooked, why their sacrifices were ignored, or why their love was not reciprocated. These questions are understandable, but there comes a point when a greater question must be asked. What has this experience taught me about myself? The answer to that question often becomes the beginning of transformation. Disappointment has a unique way of removing illusions. It forces people to see reality clearly. A woman who has experienced emotional neglect often develops a deeper understanding of human behavior. She learns that not everyone who makes promises intends to keep them. She learns that attention is not the same as commitment. She learns that words without actions have little value. These lessons are painful, but they are also protective. They help her make wiser decisions in the future. Strength is rarely developed during moments of ease. Consider how muscles grow. They are strengthened through resistance. Without resistance, there is no growth. The same principle applies emotionally and mentally. Every challenge creates an opportunity to develop greater endurance. Every setback presents a chance to build character. Every disappointment teaches lessons that success alone could never provide. Many unloved women underestimate the strength they have already developed. They focus on the pain they endured without recognizing the resilience they gained. They fail to notice how many difficult days they survived. They overlook the courage it took to continue moving forward when their hearts were broken. They forget how many times they stood up after being knocked down emotionally. What they often call survival is actually strength. The woman who continues caring despite being hurt has strength. The woman who keeps believing in a better future despite past disappointments has strength. The woman who chooses growth instead of bitterness has strength. These qualities may not always feel powerful, but they are evidence of remarkable emotional resilience. There is also a deeper benefit that emerges from rejection. It often pushes a woman towards self-discovery. When external validation disappears, she is forced to confront an important question: who am I without the approval of others? This question can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. It shifts attention away from seeking acceptance and toward developing identity. Many women discover talents, passions, and purposes only after experiencing significant disappointment. Sometimes the very pain they wish to avoid becomes the catalyst for personal growth. A failed relationship may inspire greater self-respect. A painful betrayal may lead to stronger boundaries. Emotional neglect may encourage deeper self-awareness. What initially appears to be a loss can eventually become a source of empowerment. This does not mean pain should be celebrated or that suffering is pleasant. It means that difficult experiences do not have to be wasted. Every challenge contains a lesson, and every lesson has the potential to strengthen character. The key is learning to extract wisdom from hardship rather than allowing hardship to define your future. One of the greatest dangers after disappointment is allowing pain to become identity. A woman may begin to see herself as rejected, forgotten, unwanted, or unloved. But those experiences are events, not definitions. They describe what happened, not who she is. Strength emerges when she refuses to allow temporary circumstances to determine her permanent identity. The strongest women are not those who never cried. They are not those who never experienced heartbreak. They are not those who avoided every disappointment. The strongest women are those who faced adversity and still chose to move forward. They carried wounds, but continued growing. They experienced rejection, but continued believing in their worth. They encountered failure, but continued pursuing their purpose. Eventually, there comes a moment when an unloved woman realizes something profound. The experiences that were meant to break her actually revealed her strength. The disappointments that seemed unbearable taught her resilience. The rejection that once wounded her taught her self-respect. The loneliness that once frightened her taught her independence. What she once viewed as evidence of weakness becomes proof of strength. She begins to understand that her story is not primarily about what she lost. It is about what she gained through the process. She gained wisdom. She gained discernment. She gained confidence. She gained emotional endurance. Most importantly, she gained a deeper understanding of her own value. And once a woman discovers the strength that hardship has developed within her, she stops seeing herself as a victim of her past and begins seeing herself as a product of growth, resilience, and transformation. That realization changes everything. One of the most important lessons a woman can learn in life is that her value exists independently of any relationship. This truth is simple, yet many people spend years struggling to understand it. Society often teaches women, directly or indirectly, that their worth is connected to how desirable they are, how many people admire them, or whether they have someone who loves them. When a relationship ends, when affection is withheld, or when they experience rejection, they begin to question their own significance. They start wondering whether they are enough. They ask themselves what they could have done differently. They search for flaws that might explain why they were not chosen, appreciated, or cherished. The problem with this way of thinking is that it places personal value in the hands of other people. The moment your worth depends on someone else's opinion, your confidence becomes unstable. One compliment can make you feel valuable, while one criticism can make you feel worthless. One person's attention can make you feel important, while one person's rejection can make you feel invisible. That is not freedom, that is emotional dependency. A woman must understand that value is not created by relationships. Relationships may reveal value, celebrate value, or appreciate value, but they do not create it. A person does not become valuable because someone loves them. They are loved because they already possess value. This distinction is critical because it changes the entire way you see yourself and your life. Think about a precious diamond hidden beneath the earth. Before anyone discovers it, it is already valuable. Its worth does not begin when someone finds it. Its value is not increased because someone admires it. The diamond possesses value because of what it is, not because of who recognizes it. In the same way, a woman possesses worth because of who she is, not because of who notices her, chooses her, or praises her. Many unloved women develop a habit of constantly proving themselves. They become people pleasers. They overextend themselves. They sacrifice their peace to gain acceptance. They carry responsibilities that belong to others. They tolerate disrespect because they fear losing connection. They give more than they receive because they hope their efforts will finally convince someone of their worth. Yet no amount of performance can produce genuine self-worth. When your identity is built upon external approval, you become trapped in an endless cycle. No matter how much validation you receive, it is never enough because the problem was never the absence of approval. The problem was the absence of self-recognition. You cannot permanently solve an internal problem with external solutions. This is why personal growth matters so much. A woman must spend time discovering her strengths, talents, abilities, and purpose. She must learn who she is outside of romantic relationships, family expectations, and social pressures. She must develop a vision for her life that extends beyond being someone's partner, someone's choice, or someone's source of comfort. Purpose has a powerful way of restoring perspective. When you know why you exist, you stop measuring your worth by temporary circumstances. You begin to understand that your life has meaning that cannot be cancelled by rejection. You realize that there are gifts within you that need to be developed, dreams that need to be pursued, and contributions that need to be made. Suddenly, your focus shifts from what you have lost to what you are becoming. Another important truth is that being alone does not mean being less valuable. Many women fear solitude because they associate it with failure. Yet solitude often becomes the environment where the greatest personal growth occurs. When distractions are removed, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You learn to stand on your own convictions. You develop emotional strength. You discover abilities that might have remained hidden if life had always been comfortable. A woman who understands her value no longer competes for attention. She no longer begs for affection. She no longer lowers her standards to maintain unhealthy connections. She recognizes that genuine love should complement her life, not define it. She understands that respect, appreciation, and kindness are not rewards she must earn through endless sacrifice. They are basic requirements for healthy relationships. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" she begins asking, "Why did I allow someone else's opinion to determine my worth?" Instead of chasing acceptance, she starts cultivating self-respect. Instead of focusing on who walked away, she focuses on who she is becoming. Instead of dwelling on rejection, she invests in growth. The most confident women are not necessarily those who have received the most love. Often, they are women who have learned that their value exists regardless of who stays or leaves. They understand that relationships can enrich life, but they do not define life. They know that approval can be encouraging, but it is not essential. They recognize that their identity is too important to be placed in someone else's hands. The moment a woman truly understands her value beyond relationships, she experiences a remarkable transformation. Fear begins to lose its power, desperation begins to disappear, confidence begins to grow. She no longer sees herself through the eyes of those who failed to appreciate her. She sees herself through the lens of purpose, potential, and possibility. And that understanding becomes a foundation that no rejection, disappointment, or heartbreak can ever destroy. One of the deepest wounds an unloved woman carries is not the absence of affection itself, but the fear that people will eventually leave her. This fear often develops quietly. It does not arrive suddenly. It is built through years of disappointment, rejection, neglect, broken promises, and relationships that failed to provide the security she longed for. Over time, these experiences begin to shape how she views herself and others. She may start believing that everyone she loves will eventually walk away, that every relationship has an expiration date, and that happiness is only temporary. The danger of this fear is that it does not stay hidden. It begins influencing decisions, emotions, behaviors, and relationships. A woman who fears abandonment often finds herself constantly seeking reassurance. She may overanalyze conversations, worry when someone becomes distant, or feel anxious when she is not receiving attention. She may become overly attached to people who show even the smallest amount of kindness because deep inside she is afraid that love is rare and must be held onto at all costs. Fear has a unique way of distorting reality. It causes a person to see threats where none exist. It convinces them that they must earn love rather than receive it. It whispers that if they do not give enough, sacrifice enough, or tolerate enough, they will be left behind. As a result, many women remain in unhealthy situations because they believe loneliness is worse than mistreatment. They stay connected to people who do not value them because they are terrified of being alone. But there is a profound truth that must be understood. The fear of abandonment is often more damaging than abandonment itself. Being left by someone may hurt temporarily, but living every day afraid of being left creates a constant emotional prison. It steals peace, destroys confidence, and prevents authentic relationships from developing. A woman cannot fully enjoy love if she spends every moment expecting it to disappear. She cannot experience true intimacy while constantly preparing for rejection. Relationships become exhausting when fear becomes the foundation. The first step toward freedom is recognizing that your worth is not connected to someone's decision to stay or leave. Human beings make choices based on their own maturity, character, values, and circumstances. Sometimes people leave because they are confused. Sometimes they leave because they are selfish. Sometimes they leave because they are unable to give what is needed. Their departure may reveal something about them, but it does not determine your value. Many women mistakenly interpret abandonment as proof that they are not enough. They think, if I were more attractive, they would have stayed. If I were more successful, they would have stayed. If I had done everything perfectly, they would have stayed. This mindset creates endless self-blame. The truth is that even extraordinary people experience rejection. History is filled with gifted, talented, intelligent, and compassionate individuals who were overlooked, misunderstood, and abandoned by others. Their experiences did not diminish their value. Likewise, your experiences do not diminish yours. Freedom begins when you stop measuring yourself by other people's decisions. Your value existed before they arrived, and it remains after they leave. Your identity cannot be built on something as unstable as human approval. Another important lesson is learning to become comfortable with solitude. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is feeling incomplete when alone. Solitude is feeling at peace with yourself. Many women fear being alone because they have never been taught how to enjoy their own company. They move from relationship to relationship, friendship to friendship, seeking someone to fill an internal void. Yet growth often happens in moments of solitude. It is during these seasons that you discover your strengths, clarify your purpose, and develop emotional independence. A woman who learns to stand confidently on her own becomes far less vulnerable to manipulation. She no longer accepts poor treatment simply to avoid being alone. When you understand your value, you stop chasing people who are determined to leave. You stop exhausting yourself trying to convince others to appreciate you. You realize that genuine relationships require mutual effort, mutual respect, and mutual commitment. You also learn that not every ending is a tragedy. Sometimes a person's departure creates space for growth. Sometimes losing the wrong connection protects you from greater pain. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection towards something healthier and more meaningful. The woman who breaks free from the fear of abandonment develops a new perspective on life. She no longer clings desperately to people. She appreciates relationships without becoming dependent on them. She loves without losing herself. She gives without sacrificing her identity. She trusts without surrendering her dignity. Most importantly, she understands that her future is not controlled by who stays or who leaves. Her future is shaped by her character, her choices, her purpose, and her willingness to keep moving forward. When this realization takes root, something powerful happens. Fear begins to lose its authority. Anxiety begins to lose its grip. Desperation begins to disappear. In its place emerges confidence, peace, and emotional strength. The unloved woman becomes a transformed woman. She no longer sees herself through the lens of abandonment. She sees herself through the lens of purpose. She understands that she was never created to spend her life chasing acceptance. She was created to discover her value, fulfill her assignment, and walk boldly in the person she was meant to become. And once a woman reaches that understanding, she becomes impossible to control through fear, because she knows that losing people is not the same as losing herself. Confidence is not something that appears overnight. It is not a gift that a few fortunate people receive while others are left without it. Confidence is built, developed, and strengthened through understanding who you are and why you exist. For many women who have spent years feeling unloved, rebuilding confidence can seem like an impossible task. The wounds of rejection, neglect, disappointment, and emotional abandonment often leave scars that affect how they see themselves. Over time, they begin to question their value, their beauty, their intelligence, and even their purpose. Yet the journey back to confidence begins the moment a woman realizes that her identity was never meant to be built on the opinions of other people. Many women unknowingly hand over the responsibility of defining their worth to those around them. They wait for approval, validation, compliments, and acceptance before they feel valuable. When those things are present, they feel confident. When those things disappear, their confidence disappears with them. This creates a fragile foundation because anything that depends on people can change without warning. People are inconsistent. Their opinions fluctuate. Their attention shifts. Their affection can be temporary. If your confidence depends on them, your emotional stability will always be at risk. True confidence is born when a woman understands that her worth exists independently of other people's recognition. It comes from knowing that she has value because she was created with value. It comes from understanding that she possesses gifts, talents, abilities, and potential that are unique to her. Once she begins to recognize this truth, she stops looking outward for permission to believe in herself. Personal growth plays a critical role in this process. Growth changes the way a woman sees herself because every achievement becomes evidence of her capability. Every lesson learned becomes proof of her resilience. Every obstacle overcome becomes a reminder of her strength. Growth is not merely about gaining new skills. It is about discovering new dimensions of yourself that were hidden beneath fear, insecurity, and self-doubt. Many women remain trapped in painful chapters because they spend so much time focusing on what they lost that they never discover what they can become. They replay old memories, revisit old wounds, and relive old disappointments. Their attention remains fixed on the past, while their future waits patiently for them to move forward. Growth requires a shift in focus. It demands that you stop measuring your life by what happened to you and start measuring it by what you are building. Purpose is one of the greatest confidence builders a person can discover. When a woman finds a meaningful reason to wake up each day, her energy changes, her perspective changes, her priorities change. Purpose gives direction to pain. It transforms suffering into wisdom and setbacks into preparation. A woman who understands her purpose no longer sees herself as a victim of circumstances. She begins to see herself as a contributor, a creator, and a person with something valuable to offer the world. The danger of living without purpose is that you become vulnerable to seeking fulfillment in places where it cannot be found. Many people search for purpose in relationships, hoping another person will give their life meaning. But relationships were never designed to provide identity. They were designed to complement identity. If you do not know who you are before entering a relationship, you may lose yourself trying to keep it. A woman rebuilding her confidence must learn to invest in herself. She must become a student of growth. She should read books that expand her thinking, develop skills that increase her abilities, and pursue goals that challenge her limitations. Every step of progress sends a message to her mind that she is capable of more than she previously believed. Confidence grows when competence grows. There will be moments when doubt tries to return. There will be days when old insecurities attempt to convince her that nothing has changed. During those moments, she must remember that confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is the decision to move forward despite fear. Courage is not waiting until uncertainty disappears. Courage is taking action while uncertainty still exists. One of the most empowering realizations is that failure does not diminish worth. Many women lose confidence because they interpret setbacks as evidence that they are inadequate. In reality, failure is often a classroom where growth occurs. Every successful person has experienced disappointment. Every accomplished individual has faced rejection. The difference is that they refuse to allow those experiences to define them. As confidence grows, something remarkable begins to happen. A woman stops seeking constant reassurance. She becomes less concerned with being chosen because she has already chosen herself. She becomes less desperate for approval because she understands her value. She stops shrinking her voice, hiding her talents, and apologizing for her existence. She walks with greater certainty because she knows that her future is not dependent on someone's acceptance. The woman who commits herself to personal growth eventually discovers a powerful truth. She is stronger than her past, greater than her disappointments, and more valuable than she ever imagined. She learns that confidence is not found in the absence of challenges, but in the knowledge that she can overcome them. She realizes that purpose gives meaning to her journey and direction to her life. And once a woman understands her purpose and continues growing into her potential, she becomes difficult to discourage, impossible to control, and fully prepared to embrace the life she was created to live. Pain has a unique way of changing a person. It can either become a prison that limits your future or a classroom that prepares you for it. The difference is not found in what happened to you, but in how you choose to respond to what happened. Every unloved woman eventually reaches a crossroads where she must decide whether her pain will define her or develop her. This decision becomes one of the most important choices she will ever make. Many women spend years carrying emotional wounds from rejection, abandonment, betrayal, neglect, and disappointment. They remember the words that hurt them, the relationships that failed them, and the people who made them feel invisible. These experiences leave scars that are not always visible to the world. While others see a strong woman, she may still be carrying the weight of old heartbreaks deep within her soul. The danger is not the pain itself. The danger is allowing pain to become an identity. When a woman begins to identify herself through her wounds, she unconsciously limits her potential. She starts believing that her past determines her future. She expects disappointment because disappointment has become familiar. She lowers her expectations because she fears being hurt again. She builds walls instead of wisdom and develops defenses instead of growth. Yet pain was never meant to become your permanent address. It was meant to be a temporary experience that teaches valuable lessons. Every difficult season carries knowledge that cannot be learned any other way. Strength is not developed during easy times. Wisdom is not produced through comfort. Character is not formed when everything goes according to plan. The greatest personal growth often emerges from life's greatest challenges. Consider what pain teaches. It teaches discernment. It teaches resilience. It teaches patience. It teaches emotional intelligence. It teaches self-awareness. The woman who has suffered often develops a deeper understanding of human nature than someone who has never faced adversity. She learns to recognize unhealthy patterns. She learns to identify genuine character. She learns the difference between empty promises and sincere commitment. However, these lessons only become valuable when they are embraced. Pain that is ignored becomes bitterness. Pain that is understood becomes wisdom. Bitterness keeps a person trapped in yesterday, while wisdom prepares them for tomorrow. Many unloved women unknowingly give their past too much authority over their present. They allow old experiences to make decisions for them. They assume that because one person rejected them, everyone will. They assume that because one relationship failed, future relationships will fail as well. They assume that because they were overlooked before, they will always be overlooked. This way of thinking creates invisible chains. The circumstances may have ended years ago, but the emotional impact continues to control present decisions. Freedom begins when a woman recognizes that her future does not have to resemble her past. The experiences you have survived should become evidence of your strength, not proof of your weakness. Every challenge you overcame demonstrates your ability to endure. Every disappointment you survived reveals your resilience. Every obstacle you faced shows that you are stronger than you once believed. There is tremendous power in changing the meaning of your experiences. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" begin asking, "What can this teach me?" That single shift transforms pain from an enemy into a teacher. It moves your focus away from victimhood and toward growth. It allows you to extract value from experiences that once seemed meaningless. The most remarkable women are not necessarily those who avoided suffering. They are often the ones who transformed suffering into strength. They refused to allow painful experiences to make them smaller. Instead, those experiences expanded their understanding, deepened their character, and sharpened their purpose. Every setback contains a seed of growth. Every disappointment contains a lesson. Every hardship contains an opportunity for transformation. The challenge is having the courage to look beyond the hurt and discover the hidden gift within the struggle. When a woman begins to heal, something extraordinary happens. She no longer views herself through the lens of what she lost. She begins to see herself through the lens of what she gained. She recognizes the strength she developed, the wisdom she acquired, and the character she built. She understands that while pain may have visited her life, it does not own her life. True power emerges when you stop asking people to compensate for the wounds created by others. Healing becomes your responsibility. Growth becomes your choice. Transformation becomes your commitment. This is the moment an unloved woman becomes a powerful woman. She no longer seeks validation because she understands her value. She no longer fears rejection because she knows rejection cannot diminish her worth. She no longer allows her past to dictate her future because she has learned that destiny is greater than history. The woman who transforms her pain into power becomes a light for others. Her story inspires, her resilience encourages, her wisdom guides. The very experiences that once threatened to break her become the foundation upon which she builds a meaningful life. Never forget that your pain has a purpose when it is placed in the service of growth. What wounded you can strengthen you. What hurt you can teach you. What challenged you can prepare you. The experiences that once brought tears to your eyes can eventually become the source of your greatest strength. You are not merely a survivor of difficult circumstances. You are a woman capable of transformation. And when pain is transformed into power, there is no limit to what you can become.